All right, this is the next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions, continuing our Dark Side of the Ring review series. This is going to be Dark Side of the Ring and Marty Jannetty. I'm your host, Mike.
Frank, let's get into it. It's the world,
The
according to
world,
Marty
according, yeah.
Jannetty, which 99% of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is pure bullshit. And and I'll get to this later, but the 1% that girl of his wanted to believe was a story that is ultimately horseshit.
I don't
So
know. I don't know. I wasn't there. So let's get into it.
just listening to him on this hour-long thing was enough to realize he's freaking Pinocchio, and his nose is growing every time he talks. It's amazing. They had a lot of people on this show, and the one guy that I wanted to be on there, but I guess thank God he wasn't, was Shawn Michaels himself. They just showed him, I guess,
No,
from
but
back in
Sean's
like
not gonna.
'96. Thank God. No, I'm glad I'm actually towards the end of this. I was glad he wasn't. But I mean, his character was called into question by the this girl whose credibility is something to be desired anyway.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, all those stories of Shawn back in the day were bad. So it's not just her. Like any story from Shawn Michaels in the 90s was bad. So it's not far fetched that she was telling the truth about him. So at that point, he has changed
I,
his life, it seems.
I just love when she said, "Yeah, he threw him in the bushies."
That's hilarious.
Normal around here they're called bushes, but okay, lady. In any event, here we go. They started the show off with Marty Jannetty in a wheelchair. When they showed his ankle, brother, my back was hurting. I do feel for him with that.
Yes.
Okay, that I don't wish injury on anybody. One of the orthopedics said that his pain level on any given day is probably a 12.
Mhm.
I can relate, but so I do feel for him in that aspect. Al Snow was another one that was on here repeatedly. 41 years in wrestling, God bless. Former partner of Marty, unfortunately, in the New Rockers. They actually showed the clip where the initial ankle injury
Mhm.
happened. It looked like it was Survivor Series '96. It could be off, but it was definitely in the '96 era. Of course, then you had because it sounds like this is something that comes out of Wyatt Earp, the McCluskey brothers. Leland and George, both
Mhm.
orthopedics. One's a foot and ankle specialist, the other one's shoulder and elbow. George was saying that how Marty's pain level, like I said, is 12 on a good day. He had joint replacements on top, tore up both shoulders. I mean, this guy was put through the ringer,
Banged up.
unfortunately. Yeah.
The
Um,
backstory to that, they don't mention it in this. I've just seen interviews with Marty Jannetty. It's worth
yeah.
mentioning. Was that, he was trying to get a WWE to pay for it, and they refused because they said, "Oh, if we pay for yours, you know, we got to pay for everybody's." And the argument he was trying to make was like, "Well, you send all these guys to rehab, and you pay for their rehabs, and this is going to cost a fraction of you sending these guys to rehab multiple times, and this is part of the injuries I sustained when I was over there, but they wouldn't pay for it. But I'm glad he got it done somehow. Good for him.
Yeah. I mean, not to get sidetracked, because we could probably talk all day about what WWE should do for their wrestlers. But real quickly, I will say I have to agree with him. I believe they should pay some in some aspect of it. I mean, these guys are putting their bodies on the line 300 days out of the year. They are going to have wear and tear. WWE needs to have some sort of
No,
accountability.
I agree. I mean, their thing is probably like, well, you worked in other companies, so how do we know that it happened here? And which
That's why I'm saying the
is
argument could be
business.
made.
But there should have been a union, and there should be a union. I'm a union guy myself, and so I'm going to lean towards that. And the reason why there is no union, I don't want to start sidetracked, is because of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. Jesse Ventura tried to
Oh,
start a
yes.
union in the 80s, and it could have been pulled off if not for the Hulkster. All right, but I digress. Let's
Didn't
go.
somebody recently, again, not to get sidetracked, but didn't somebody recently mention that in the last 5, 10 years in
I think so.
WWE, one of the wrestlers said that there should be a union.
Yeah,
I want to say it was Nia Jax, but
maybe.
and speaking of her,
I don't know.
unfortunately she's coming back, but I want to say it's her. I could be wrong, but I do remember a wrestler saying it within the last decade that we should be unionized.
Yeah, I don't
And
remember who it was, but
honestly, I agree. They would be more protected and more healthy if they had it. But again, we can spend all day on that, and we still have a whole debacle to cover. So, and for whatever reason, they were talking about, him back in high school. He mixed orange and blue, blew up the chem lab. Good for you, Marty. This is where they got to Karen Walker, and wow, this girl to me is a trip. Friend for 40 years of Marty's. Now here's she tells you this and then says something else later on. She says you can't believe what he tells you because 99% of the time it's pure bullshit. He talks. She said Marty said he had 12 hookers, gave him freebies. Um, oh, I'm
Was
sorry,
it
when he was 12, hookers
when
gave
he
him
was 12?
freebies.
When he was 12, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was about to say.
yeah. Sorry
When he
about
was
that.
12, yeah.
And again, you got to take that, I guess, with a grain of salt. Says he dated his counselor, and again, take it with a grain of
Well, he
salt.
was saying that he went to like sex rehab or something, and then he dated his counselor.
Oh, brother.
That was the story.
Oh, boy. The one sad note they mentioned was that his mom did beat him as a kid. He wouldn't tell his dad. So sports was a way for him to get out of there.
He probably
They,
deserved it. He probably deserved it.
oh, Lord. They interviewed Mike Moran, and I was really trying to place this guy and remember him, but I couldn't. Even when they mentioned the tag team, I was
I
at
didn't
a
know. I
loss.
didn't know what the hell he was. I don't know. Tanaka. I couldn't believe Pat Tanaka was there.
Oh, guy looks homeless. Good Lord. Well, I mean, it's also 35 years later since we've seen him wrestle.
I thought he was dead. I didn't. No, I mean,
After he left WWE, I never heard of him again.
Yeah.
I think in
It was good to see him though.
maybe.
Good to see him.
Yeah, especially the stories he was telling, which is
Bro.
like unbelievable. Mike Moran was the former wrestler. He said he met Marty in 1984, been friends ever since. Um, Marty made his debut in 1983. He was mentoring Shawn Michaels. 2 weeks later, the tag team was formed, the Midnight Rockers. That's where Pat Tanaka then comes in, who was part of the Orient Express, opponent of Marty's on multiple occasions and a good friend of his. The one guy that shocked me for being on this was Brutus the Barber Beefcake and his wife, Missy.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
But not Missy Hyatt. I don't know who the hell this is.
Oh, not Missy Hyatt. This is Missy Beefcake.
Yeah.
Says she was mesmerized by Marty.
Yeah, she's like, she wants to see him naked or whatever. Like, and then you see Bruce the Barber Beefcake sitting there, like, looking like all awkward, like.
Wow. Yeah, and then he mentioned he said something at the end of the show. He was like, "Yeah, she wants to have sex with him.
Stay away from my wife.
Stay away from my wife.
I'd flash you, but I'm mic'd up right now. I'm like, Jesus
Christ. Please, for the love of God, don't. Just, I'm asking for all the children that are probably watching this. Then they referred back to Ken Party, but they were trying to be low key. And Jimmy Jack Funk goes up to him and goes, "Hey, I hear you're a bunch of punks that like to party." And he's eating glass. And Shawn, just to get rid of him, breaks a bottle over, goes, "Hey, you happy?" And then, of course, this story says they tore up the bar.
Well, no. So they merged two different stories. Like I paid close attention to it.
I kind of figured they did.
Yeah. The only thing they said about that he smashed it, and then they were throwing the shot glasses behind the bar, and then they merged that with, well, these guys used to like to go out and party, and they would tear up the place, but it wasn't the same story. You could tell like it was two different.
Because according to Shawn's documentary, that's how Shawn said it was. He did it just to get rid of them, and that was the end of the night.
Yeah, it probably was a little bit more than that.
Probably.
I tend to lean towards Shawn though. Hearing these two versions,
yes,
he probably just did that, and maybe they did throw some shot glasses, but it wasn't that big of a deal.
Just to get rid of them. Be like, all right, here, we did it. You happy? Go away. And then, of course, they get called to Vince's office the next day, and Vince looks at them. He goes, nice boots. Those boots were made for walking. Yeah. And they're like, oh, no. He goes, no, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, you're fired.
Yeah, that's from the Shawn Michaels documentary. That's not from this episode. They didn't mention that.
No. I figured I put that in because they were talking about the same thing. Now this is where I seriously.
Oh well, as you mentioned, they were an AWA. They were the Midnight Rockers, and then the Midnight Rocker name is a hybrid of the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Rockers. So
yeah, and they were really good there. I got to admit.
No, they were. That's where they got hired, and then they got fired a day later, whatever it was.
Unfortunately, by that point, they had gone down to Continental, spent a year there. But before that, let me get into this one because I'm surprised he wasn't wearing the T-shirt on the show. Gad.
Oh, that was great.
God's amusement toy.
Yeah.
Because when he said when God is done with anything else,
he decides
to Yeah, throw
Throw li-
lightning bolts at Marty
right,
Jannetty.
and then something happens, and then he gets into some trouble. The black cloud is following him.
Al Snow said this is just him not taking
Yeah,
responsibility for his own actions,
yeah.
which is I
Well,
100%
no.
agree
Yeah,
because Marty's got to put the blame on somebody other than
yeah.
himself,
Hmm.
which is ridiculous. And everybody on there is like, "Oh yeah, I know about Gat." I'm like, "Oh my god,
That's
how many
great.
people
First time I heard
told
it. It's
this?"
awesome.
Yeah, seriously. Um, but as far as the Rockers go, 1 year later they're back. Marty puts it, if we're on the road 300 days, we're partying
The
290.
90, yeah.
You know, with 20, 30 girls lining up in the hotel. Again, you want to believe it or not, possibly, probably, who knows?
It's like Goldberg streak.
Um,
I'm sure it was there was a
oh
streak, but
Lord,
I don't know how much it really was, you know.
oh
Like
God,
no, I'm just saying about the
I
embellishment. I believe it. I believe it. I just don't
yeah.
know what the real
See,
number
I
is.
knew this. I knew this season finale was going to be a
Yeah.
humdinger of a main event
Yeah.
here. Um, the story that Pat Tanaka's was telling was I really started
Oh, with the
laughing.
gun?
Yeah, he falls asleep, and then
And he
Marty
starts
just starts
firing the gun.
shooting a gun,
Oh,
hits
no,
his car,
he
puts a
went through
bullet
the
in his
he went through
apartment, in his bedroom, the wall,
and he
and then
blamed
he's
Tanaka
blaming Pat.
because he fell
Yeah,
asleep.
if you didn't fall asleep, I wouldn't have had to fire my gun. Oh, why
He
don't you
could have
just
killed
blame it on
somebody.
Gat, bro? Yeah, seriously.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. December 11th, 1990. Marty Jannetty does the infamous rocker dropper on Chuck
Yeah.
Austin,
It was the Superstars of
in which
Wrestling dark match that was
okay.
never aired, yeah.
And as you see it, Austin jumps up into it and lands completely head first where he broke his neck.
Yeah, because the way he positioned his head.
Mhm.
He wasn't supposed to go up like that. He was just
I
supposed to
don't know
drop
why
down.
he did that.
He had no experience. The story is that he lied backstage. He told them that he had experience and that he had been there because I've seen interviews about this. And apparently he didn't have any experience or very little experience. He said that he knew how to take the bump. Yeah, yeah, I know how to take the bump. Marty said he got overexcited because the spot before that, the crowd had erupted and
Yeah,
he went all the way up and he rocker dropper, boom. Sean went up to the top rope. He told Sean, I think he's hurt. And Sean, he just falls, but he doesn't touch him. He just falls
yeah,
like
and then pins him, and then they got the hell out of there.
yeah.
And everybody in the back is watching the
Hmm.
monitor. Um, he was put on a helicopter. Um, Chuck said he questioned Marty several times about the move. Well, and again, I don't. If he was according to Marty, I guess he was okay in doing it, but then he says he questioned it.
I believe Marty Jannetty, man. The guy was paralyzed. He
Yeah,
was suing. What do you expect him to say? That oh yeah, Marty Jannetty,
sued
you know,
sued for $10 million, and they said the D. Malenko actually showed the jury the move.
right? Yeah, yeah, to show him
Like,
like this is how you
yeah,
do it, and it can be done. And he screwed up. It wasn't the wrestlers that screwed up.
yeah, and 7 days in trial. It took the jury 20 minutes to say that WWF was 90%
At fault.
negligent
Yeah.
and gave Austin $24 million. But once they
Well,
appealed it, it went
but,
back to 10.
but remember, they found it 90%, and then the remaining 5% was Marty, and 5%
Marty, yeah,
was this guy. So yeah, they did appeal it. Sean got off because Shawn Michaels. They told him, "Oh, you don't have anything to do with this," because he didn't do the move. So and he's
exactly.
like, and then Marty was saying, Sean, man, this guy could step in shit, and he's just a lucky guy.
But
And
but in actuality, Sean really didn't have anything to do
no, he
with it.
didn't.
So
He didn't have anything to do with the spot. It's not his fault. He didn't do it.
exactly. So for Marty to say that, I
Yeah.
mean, the dude, I mean, this was unfortunatally on
And then
you,
they just took out that 5% out of his royalties. Like
his
they just
royalties, which
yeah.
probably wasn't much. But then of course Karen's saying, don't Sean in real life is egotistical. Um, she did say, Sean did half the drugs that Marty did, which I
I
don't
believe
know if
I
we should.
I I believe all of that because every story, even Sean admitted that he was out of control back then. So I believe all of that.
Yeah, I mean they show you the pictures of Marty and then with the
Yeah,
lampshades
they
on
were
their
partying.
heads. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
they were big
you
partyers.
you, you tell Marty if Marty there's a party and forget it.
Yeah.
Say no more. She it's talked about one time she found Marty passed out and she called Sean and Sean's like, I'll take care of it. Him and Superfly Jimmy
Yeah,
Snuka
she told him
to come
supposedly they
over. The
said not
pills are all over the
they said
place.
not to call the ambulance or anything like that.
Yeah, they
He
put
could
him
have
in the
died.
shower.
He could have died.
Exactly.
They were probably
Maybe.
just thinking like, oh, it's not a big deal, and if the cops get here and they find all these pills, he's going to jail. So I understand it
Exactly.
from the certain point of view, but at the same time, the guy could have dropped dead. What they did
Yeah.
leave out was they left out the part that the Rockers actually won the tag team titles, and then they got stripped, and because the rope broke in the match. We've covered the story. For those that don't
Yeah.
know, they did actually win the tag titles, but the rope broke during a taping of Saturday Night's Main Event.
And then, of course, there's two
And
stories behind it.
so
One
who
from
the
Sean, one
so
from
it was
Vince.
a
Who
phantom. It was a
knows?
phantom win, so they never actually got the titles. But they should have mentioned. I thought they should have mentioned it. Maybe they did, and they just cut it out for time
No, I
constraints.
didn't. I didn't. Well,
No, I'm
yeah, I
saying
didn't hear it
they might have
here.
shot it. They might have shot it in time constraints. They don't. It's an interesting side note.
Yeah. And of course, we get to the real life drama between these two guys fighting in the hotel.
Mm.
Sean knocked. This is where she said Sean knocked Marty through the window, and he hit the bushies. Well, for everybody else, it's
Luckily, they
bushes,
were on
but
the first floor.
okay, Karen.
Luckily, it was in the first
Yeah,
floor.
luckily he was on the first floor. He comes back in. Marty, tells him, "You think you could do that again?"
Yeah.
If I'm Sean and I'm looking, I'm like, "Let's go. Get
Well,
another window."
supposedly then Marty whipped his ass
Yes, he
after
did.
that.
And this is where the real life drama ensued, to where they wanted to do the split up. They met with Vince. Now, this is where
That's hilarious.
I think
It's
maybe
like,
Vince was wrong, because he says, Sean, you're a superstar. I see nothing in you, Marty. And Marty's like, I'm only going to do the split if I'm still
well,
around here.
yeah.
If you're going to fire me afterwards, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Well, it was messed up because Sean double crossed. In a way, Sean double crossed him because Vince is like, "Oh, I'm thinking about splitting you guys up," and then Marty was like, "Yeah, I think we need to talk. Me and Sean need to talk about it." And Sean said, "I got no problem with that." So that was
Yeah,
it. It was over at that point, you know. But I
yeah,
think, listen, to Sean's defense, he wanted to be a singles wrestler, and Marty was a little out of control, and he did what he had to do. So maybe he didn't go about it the right way. Maybe they should have had that
exactly.
conversation in private, but it kind of is what it is. But yeah, Marty was saying like, listen, I'm willing to do business, but if you're just gonna like not discard me after
If
this,
you're
I'm
going to
not
shit
gonna do
can
it.
me, then forget it. I'm
But
not
from
doing it. We're going to stay together.
but
Yeah,
from what I remember hearing in different interviews, that Vince actually did have plans for both of them, to be solo. Obviously, Sean to be the superstar, but he did have plans for Marty as a solo star, but Marty just couldn't stay out of trouble.
I'm going to break down Marty here in a minute, because to be honest, his success didn't come until after the Rocker breakup, and I'll get to that in a little bit. And then you'll see where I'm coming from. But they showed that they planted the seeds for the breakup, and then the infamous
The barbershop.
barbershop segment that Brutus didn't even know what was going to happen, or he said that he didn't know what was going to happen. And Marty's telling him, and oh man, I love this. Was one of my favorite.
Yeah,
Besides the barbershop thing, this and Sid Justice looking like he just blew up a cocaine factory were the two best moments on the barbershop ever. Marty telling him, "I'm going to turn my back. If you this is over, walk away. If not, you shake my hand, and we'll be the Rockers." And blah 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 blah. Sean shakes his hand, puts his hand on his chest,
no,
super kicks him. I knew he was going to do that. He doesn't need Jannetty. And then we got Windows 91, the Jannetty
hmm
edition. Smashed right through the glass. And I mean, this was probably ahead of its time in 1991. I mean, they didn't air it until January 92. But I mean, it was probably ahead of its time for something like that. And at that point, Sean was resented by Marty after that, which he had he kind of hated him for it, and Sean pretty much was trying to get away from Marty, so this is why they did this.
Yeah, but they were supposed to have that.
And
They were supposed to have their match right after that, but then Marty got
and then the
arrested.
infamous thing in Tampa,
Yeah.
where he gets arrested, and he's on the house arrest for 6 months, because they
hmm
were supposed to fight at WrestleMania 8.
Yep.
And they said, I think he was in competition with the Iron Sheik as far as being fired and hired
Right,
more
right, right. Yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, that's insane. They even talked about how in India he asked a cop
To
to,
ride
if he can ride the scooter, and he rides it into a hotel fountain.
that
What
was
the?
great. They had the video of it too.
Yeah, I got to admit, I got to laugh out of this
I
one. I'm
did
like,
laugh.
holy shit, this is the cop. If the cop is embarrassed, well, that's on you, brother, because you let him do this. But I really thought that was funny. Um, then of course they don't do him any favors when they put him in the new Rockers. Now let me hold off there for a second and go back to what I was saying before. Marty Jannetty didn't obtain his success until after he left Shawn Michaels. Because if you look at it, he became Intercontinental Champion and became Tag Team Champion all without Shawn Michaels. So, in retrospect, he just like Shawn needed to get away from Marty. Marty needed to get away from Shawn for him to actually have that success that he had. Otherwise, the two of them together, they got nothing. Just an avoided tag team title match that now supposedly never existed.
Yeah,
So, I mean, his
but there
career
was
really
no.
wasn't too shabby between 93 and 96,
It was actually
other than
not,
the fact
but
that he
no,
was unstable.
because him getting fired multiple times, it wasn't steady, it wasn't consistent. At least with the Rockers, there was like a 7 year run they had consistency from when they were the Midnight Rockers to the Rockers. Once they split up, it was all down. It was
Wasn't
like
one of the terminations
it was like
after the
this.
Rumble because they thought he was high, but he wasn't?
Well, that Sean
And
said he was hungover or something like that.
yeah,
So
so I mean,
no, he was very. That was the beginning of the end, believe it or not. Despite him winning the IC title and tag, he was so inconsistent that no,
I'm not
eventually,
knocking that, but I'm just
yeah,
saying, he did get gold away from Shawn Michaels, but
yeah,
they
but that's
didn't do him no justice with the new rocker thing.
yeah, that was those
That was garbage. And we've said it. Anytime you put new or
two
2000
thousand, yeah.
in front of your name, except for New Age Outlaws, I've been
Yeah, but
told that
that's
that that's something
we're talking about
else.
rebranding. We're talking about rebranding, not a
Rebranding, you
new
put new in
yeah,
2000, it's going to crap out.
yeah.
So once he left WWE, then he had gone to WCW for literally a cup of
Cup of
coffee.
coffee, yeah. I forget
Um,
sometimes that he was in WCW.
I don't even think he did one or two pay-per-views I do remember, and I believe one of them possibly was World War III, the 60-man battle royal. But yeah, unless you go back or really watched back then, you didn't know he was there.
Yeah,
And during this time, he's in WCW. He has another altercation where now he loses his license for 10 years. So now he's out of WCW. Um, at this point, now he's devastated. He's starting to throw darts at Sean's poster. Um,
Jesus.
and over the next 5 years, he started spiraling and wanted to OD on cocaine, and even said the story. And when he was looking for a sign from God to change all this, he gets a phone call from Shawn Michaels asking him to come to
Yeah.
Arizona to be part of the church that he was in. He baptized them, and he said he lived pure for 3 weeks. Now, why he couldn't stay that way, I have no idea.
He's an addict, that's why it's not.
Well, so was
He
Sean,
really
but
relapse, but some people,
I don't know. It's and I really can't say anything unless I've walked a mile in their shoes on how difficult it is. So that I'm not going to question why he couldn't do it, or I really shouldn't. Um, but at this time is when they did the Rocker reunion in
hmm
2005, and I do remember this.
remember that too.
I remember watching it on Raw, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't
Yeah, I
believe
couldn't
they're
believe it.
doing
I
this."
just wish I mentioned this when we did the Rocker episode. I just wish that Sean would have came on the Rocker gear too, because
Exactly,
Sean
instead
was
of
in
his
his.
own out. Yeah,
Yeah. That's the only thing that took away from it. But it was so good to see those two together, man.
it was,
So
and they
good.
beat La Resistance,
Yeah.
and he was actually gotten a contract to be there more.
Yeah, because he had fought Kurt Angle after that, I remember, and then he got fired
Yeah,
right
they
after he fought
they
Kurt Angle.
they did, because when Kurt Angle was feuding with Sean, Kurt was bringing in all the past Sean's past, brought in Sherry, doing the whole sexy boy thing again. Um, Marty Jannetty was there, and he fought Kurt Angle. And with Marty actually getting a contract after this, I didn't know that. I thought this was just a bunch of one-off stuff during the
No, I
Angle
remember
feud.
reading it. I remember reading that he had gotten signed and then
But
he
to
got
find
fired.
out now that you get this last chance,
Yeah,
and then a week later you're in jail.
right. Yeah, something with
I mean,
stripper, right? It was something with.
yeah, and then the neighbor called in about the fight and said, "Oh, by the way, he's on probation. Go get him."
Oh Jesus! So yeah, he got canned, and then Vince was saying, "Oh, he's got a black cloud." They did mention. They did. Well, I shouldn't say they didn't mention. They didn't mention that a year later he came back. Vince hired him again. They didn't mention that. I don't know if you remember this. When Sean initially started feuding with the Spirit Squad, Marty Jannetty saves him.
Yes, I do.
They didn't mention that, and then Vince wanted him to join the Kiss My Ass Club. Marty refused.
Yes,
Right? And then he was supposed to go into a program, which would be him and Sean versus the Spirit Squad, and he got fired again. I don't know why he got fired, and then they reformed DX after that. I think
Yeah.
that was the
I, I
timeline.
I
But
do
yeah,
remember
he
that.
did come back
Like I
again,
remember the
and then he
Kiss
got
My
fired
Ass
again.
Club.
Yeah, and he got fired again. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's a year later.
I mean, the Black Cloud, whether he's causing it himself or really is there, man. You know, and of course, Brutus was talking about how Marty still to this day is trying to get in the ring, and they showed him, doing a independent thing in the gymnasium, and the ankle is still a problem for him and whatnot. This is where they save the best for last on this story. When all of a sudden he starts talking about how he made a man disappear when he was 13, and I really believe he was telling the story just to get relevant again. Until somebody told him, "Hey, by the way, there's no statute of limitations on murder."
He put it on
Oh,
Facebook.
damn.
He put it on
Yeah.
Facebook, and then
Oh,
they,
him and the internet, forget it.
yeah.
The shit that he would write, Al Snow just like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And I'm sorry, but to me, the one thing I try to stay away from is you post anything on social media. Number one is never going away,
Yeah, yeah.
and you just hurt
Um,
you. You're hurting yourself, and the stupidity that he was writing
yeah, he
about
was
the well, he said he didn't write the one
the
about
daughter.
the daughter and the DNA testing. But the whole thing with Michelle Obama, and I got 13 was it 13 black kids, and oh my God, just something wrong with this boy mentally. But this whole thing with the murder, and then he takes them back to the same place where he's meeting a guy that works at the bowling alley who happens to sell weed, gets into the truck, and
Well,
he
he tells
starts
him.
trying to molest him.
Well, he tells him. He tells him. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. They had the whole investigation, and then they didn't find there was no evidence, right? I mean,
No,
this
there
is
was no
how many
missing
years?
persons
Right,
report.
right, right, right. So then the Dark Side crew interviews him about it, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna take." He takes them there to the bowling alley and everything, and then he tells the story. But he's like, "Oh, it was a wrestling angle," but it's like a wink, wink. No, it wasn't. Kind of like it wasn't a wrestling angle. Hypothetically
Supposedly,
speaking,
he hit him with a rock
that's
in the tent in
so. So
the thing,
supposedly the
which
guy went to buy. He went to buy. Marty went to buy weed from this guy. He was in the guy's car, and then the guy like basically was trying to like molest him, rape him, whatever, like
yes,
reached in his pants, and then they get into a scuffle, then they're outside and the guy's still attacking him. He's a lot bigger than him, and Marty says he grabbed a rock and he hit him in the head. Didn't know what to do.
yeah,
So he got one of
drunk
his family
dumps him in.
members.
Yeah. They said don't
He
call the
said he got his
cops, and
he
they
got
brought him over
he
to
got
the
his brother.
river.
Then later on they said they didn't put him in the river. That he set him on fire. He set the
That's
body
where
on
I'm
fire.
telling you that this is 100%
I
horseshit.
don't know. Here's the kicker though, is that Al Snow said that he told him that story in the 90s. So
I don't
he
know,
might have just
man.
held on to this story
I think
and used it again.
if you tell the story enough, you start believing it yourself.
Yeah, no, there's people like that.
If you start telling the lie enough, you're gonna believe it.
There's people
And
like
of
that.
course, this is the one story Karen wants to believe
Because she
is
said that
true.
because she said that he told him that story and that I guess she could tell when he was BSing and when he was telling the truth. I don't know. I don't know. Only he knows.
Exactly. The mind of Marty Jannetty is, man.
It's I couldn't
I don't
believe
know what to believe on that one, man.
I couldn't believe he actually told that story though. Like I understand he got cleared already, but I
When
can't
I
believe
first heard that he came out with it on social media, the first thing I said was, "Oh, he's just trying to be relevant and
it
back in the news again. Like, here we
was a
go."
wrestling angle. He said it was a wrestling angle.
Yeah, to kill somebody, that's definitely a wrestling angle.
I
Well, I
don't know,
shouldn't say
man.
that. The TNA, did a wrestling angle where they killed Eric Young. WWE killed Vince McMahon in
Yeah,
2007.
but the only difference is they were actually on air doing this
Yeah.
story. This guy wasn't working
Hmm.
for any promotion. So I don't know.
No, so I,
He was like in his own
he
like
he was in business for himself.
right. Either way, listen, I thought it was a good episode. It was very interesting. This
Oh,
is
they waited for a great
yeah, this is this
season finale, brother.
unfortunately this is the season finale, man. I wish there were more episodes. Hopefully we get
Oh,
another
I'm sure
season.
we're gonna get a new brand new
Yeah.
season. Yeah.
Hmm.
Not I don't know, but probably next year. Next May? I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
I know that they have filmed some other interviews, but they
Mhm.
haven't announced any episodes, but they have other interviews ready just in case. So hopefully
I'm
another season.
curious to
It's a good
see
show.
what the next batch that they'll come out with
We need we
because
need
what we've seen.
we need Arn Anderson and Sid,
Uh,
But I've said,
Yes, we
Arn
definitely need
refuses.
that one.
Arn refuses to discuss the stabbing. But maybe they can get Sid to do it. That's my hope. We just need Sid.
We've seen episodes where
Other parties
there's
are not
been
there.
a two party
The Hogan
situation and
wasn't
the
in
other
Dark
party's not
Side.
there exactly.
Hogan
So
wasn't there. Hogan wasn't in the Bash
nope.
episode. So fingers crossed. Arn Anderson. Sid.
Every season I go, okay, let's see how they can top this, and they do it every season.
Yeah.
So I really cannot wait to see what they come out with
You
next.
know, WCW in 2000 could be an episode by itself. The
That could
disaster.
be a whole
The
season.
complete total disaster, though. But yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God,
there's
that
still
could
a
be a
lot.
whole season.
There's still
Seriously,
a lot of stories to be told. So hopefully we get them.
there is a lot out there.
Yeah. All right, well, that's our episode. Please let us know what you think. Let us know if you think Marty Jannetty is telling the truth. I'm curious. So
Oh
please
boy,
like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
take care.